Hey guys, tonight we're going to step into the stirrups and ride out into the vast, open plains of history. We're not talking about knights in shining armor or kings in gilded halls. We're going to talk about a man who terrified the civilized world. A man whose name still sends a shiver down the spine of history teachers everywhere. We're going to talk about Attila the Hun. This is the kind of story that reminds you that you probably wouldn't have survived the 5th century. This isn't a boring lecture about dates and treaties. This is the story of pure, unadulterated, and brutal power. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is for you. I love seeing where these stories go. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You don't have a home in the way a Roman citizen would think of it. Your home is a horse. Your home is a wagon. Your home is the endless, grassy steppe that stretches from the horizon to the very edges of the known world. You are a child of the Huns, and you are a child of the wind. You learn to ride almost before you can walk, your small body clinging to the back of a shaggy pony as your family's small band of wagons rumbles across the plains. The world is a wide, dangerous place, and survival is not a given. It is earned with every sunrise. The land is unforgiving. Winters are brutal, and food is often scarce. But this harsh life forges you into something hard and resilient. You learn to hunt with a bow, a short, powerful weapon that becomes an extension of your own arm. You learn to ride your horse with an almost supernatural grace, able to fire arrows with deadly accuracy while galloping at a full run. You don't need a fancy Roman legionary training manual. Your classroom is the steppe, and your teachers are the wolves, the wind, and the relentless cycle of feast and famine. As you grow, you begin to understand the structure of your people. You are not a kingdom. You are not an empire. You are a collection of tribes, bound together by a shared language, a shared culture, and a shared way of life. But even within this loose confederation, there is a strict hierarchy. There are the great families, the chieftains, the men who command respect and who lead the warriors. You are a part of this world, a small piece in a vast and shifting mosaic of alliances and rivalries. The Romans, to the south and west, are a distant and often mythical presence. You hear stories of their cities of stone, their armies of disciplined soldiers, and their endless wealth. To you, they are a strange, soft people who live in one place, who don't understand the true nature of freedom and survival. But they are a presence, an anchor to the south that your people often trade with, or more often, raid. The raids are not just for plunder, they are a rite of passage, a way to prove your worth as a warrior. You grow up on these raids, learning to sweep in like a storm, to strike with terrifying speed and disappear just as quickly. The Romans, with their heavy armor and their rigid formations, are ill-equipped to deal with your hit-and-run tactics. They are like a great, slow-moving beast, and you are a pack of fast, agile wolves nipping at its heels. You learn that fear is a powerful weapon, and that the sight of a Hunnish warrior riding out of the dust, screaming and shooting arrows, is often enough to send a group of Roman soldiers into a panic. One of the most interesting and often overlooked details about the Huns is their incredible use of the composite bow. This wasn't some simple piece of wood. It was a masterpiece of engineering, made from a combination of wood, horn, and sinew. This combination gave it incredible power, allowing it to fire arrows that could pierce Roman armor at a range that the Romans simply couldn't match. You and your fellow warriors would spend countless hours practicing with this weapon, until it felt like a part of your own body. It was a technological advantage that made your armies a force to be reckoned with. The Huns, you see, weren't just a simple tribe. They were a military-industrial complex on horseback. They didn't have cities or factories, but their entire culture was geared towards warfare and survival. They were a constant threat to the borders of the Roman Empire, a problem that the Romans could never quite solve. The Romans would try to bribe you with gold, or they would try to fight you with armies, but neither tactic ever truly worked. You would take the gold, and then you would come back for more. You would fight their armies, and then you would disappear back into the vastness of the steppe, only to return when they least expected it. Historians still debate the true origin of the Huns. Were they a nomadic people from Central Asia? Were they an offshoot of another tribe? The truth is that the Huns were a diverse, multi-ethnic group, and the term Hun often referred to a collection of nomadic tribes who had fallen under the rule of a single, powerful chieftain. This is a crucial detail to remember. You are not just a simple Hun. You are a part of a dynamic, complex, and ever-shifting society that is held together by a single, powerful force, the will of its leader. And that leadership is about to change. The stories begin to circulate. The chieftains gather, their faces grim. A new leader has risen to power. He is a man named Attila. You hear the stories of his ferocity, his cunning, and his boundless ambition. He is not just a raider, he is a conqueror. He is not just a chieftain, he is an emperor. He is a man who dreams of a new kind of empire. An empire not of stone cities and soft people, but an empire of fear, of loyalty, and of the absolute power of the sword. The world is about to change, and you, a simple Hunnic warrior, are about to be a part of it. Your life of raiding and survival is about to give way to a new kind of war, a war of conquest and domination, and the name of the man who will lead you will be whispered in terror for 1,000 years. The world you knew, a world of raiding and nomadic freedom, changes the moment Attila assumes power. It's not a gentle change, it's a seismic shift, a consolidation of power so absolute and so swift that it leaves you and your fellow warriors in a state of awe and fear. Attila is not like the chieftains before him. He is not a diplomat, not a man who seeks compromise. He is a force of nature, a living embodiment of the Hunnish way of war, and he takes it to a terrifying new level. Your training now is not just about survival, it's about conquest. You are a part of a unified army now, a single, terrifying entity that moves as one. Attila standardizes everything. The old tribal rivalries are suppressed, replaced by a single loyalty to him. Your composite bow, once a tool for hunting and raiding, is now a weapon of mass destruction. Your horse, once a means of transportation, is now a weapon itself, a living extension of your will. You learn to ride not just as a rider, but as a warrior who can sleep, eat, and fight from the saddle. This is your new reality, and it is a brutal one. The Hunnish way of war is not about sieges or occupying land. It's about total destruction and psychological terror. You and your fellow warriors are a terrifying cavalry force, a swarm of mounted archers that can appear out of nowhere and disappear just as quickly. You don't fight in a neat Roman formation. You fight as a pack, a swirling mass of riders that circles the enemy, raining down a constant hail of arrows. The enemy, confused and terrified, can't get close to you when they try to charge. You simply ride away, only to return from a different direction, a relentless, unceasing storm of death. One of the more brutal and effective tactics you learn is the art of feigned retreat. You and a small band of riders will charge the enemy, fire a few volleys, and then, as if panicked, turn and flee. The enemy, emboldened and thinking they have you on the run, will break formation and give chase. This is the moment they make their fatal mistake. You ride just far enough to draw them out, and then, at a prearranged signal, you turn, and not just you, but the main body of the army, which has been waiting in ambush, suddenly appears. The enemy, caught in the open, with their formation broken, is slaughtered. It's a trick as old as war itself, but you perfect it. making it a cornerstone of Attila's brutal military strategy. The psychological warfare is just as important as the physical. Your armies are not just a military force, they are a psychological weapon. You don't just attack a city, you create a reputation. You spread the word that no one can stand against you, that your wrath is absolute, and that all who resist will be annihilated. This is Attila's genius. He understands that fear is a more effective weapon than any sword, and that the reputation of your army will often be enough to make a city surrender without a fight. The stories of your brutality, of the villages you've burned to the ground, of the people you've slaughtered, spread far and wide. You are the embodiment of that terror, a living, breathing part of the Scourge of God. As the Romans will come to call your leader, the Romans, with their heavy infantry and their reliance on static defenses, are ill-equipped to deal with this new reality. Their fortresses are useless against an army that can simply ride around them. Their heavy legions, so effective against other infantry, are just a bunch of slow-moving targets for your arrows. They can't catch you, they can't pin you down, and they can't seem to stop you. To them, you are not just a military threat, you are a conceptual one. A living, breathing reminder that their old ways are failing. Historians still debate the true size of Attila's army. Was it a massive, unstoppable horde of hundreds of thousands of warriors? Or was it a smaller, more mobile force that was made to seem larger by its terrifying speed and its psychological impact? The truth is likely somewhere in the middle. The Hunnic army was likely a coalition of many different tribes, and its size would fluctuate with each new campaign. But what is undeniable is the power of the idea of the Hunnic horde. It was the fear of the endless numbers, the fear of the unstoppable tide of mounted archers. That was the most powerful weapon of all, as you ride across the plains. You are no longer just a Hun. You are a part of a brutal, efficient, and terrifying military machine. You are a cog in the wheel of a new empire, an empire of terror and conquest. The world, a world that for centuries has been dominated by the Romans, is about to face its greatest challenge. And the man who will lead you on that terrible journey is Attila. He is the storm, and you are the thunder. And together, you are about to rain down destruction on a world that never saw you coming. Your life under Attila's command is a whirlwind of movement and destruction. You are no longer just a raider, but a conqueror. The Roman Empire, that strange, soft place of cities and vineyards, is your target. But you don't go for the heart of the empire right away. Attila is a cunning strategist, and he knows that the Roman beast is weak, but still dangerous. He chooses his targets carefully, and his first target is the Eastern Roman Empire, the one centered in Constantinople. The year is now somewhere in the early 440s, and the Romans are in a state of chaos. The Eastern Roman Emperor, Theodosius II, is a man who seems more interested in religious disputes than in the defense of his borders. His court is a nest of intrigue and backstabbing. The Roman military, once the most powerful force in the world, is now a shadow of its former self. Its legions filled with mercenaries and conscripts. Its commanders more interested in gaining political power than in winning battles. This is the perfect environment for a predator like Attila. You and your fellow warriors are unleashed on the Roman frontier along the Danube River. This is not a raid. This is a full-scale invasion. You pour across the river like a flood. A relentless tide of mounted archers and spearmen. The Roman defenses, a series of fortified towns and watchtowers, are simply swept away. You don't bother with long, drawn-out sieges. You simply burn the towns to the ground, slaughter the garrison, and move on. The fear is a palpable thing, a thick, suffocating cloud that spreads before you. You ride across the rolling hills and fertile plains, and you see firsthand the stark contrast between your world and theirs. The Roman countryside is filled with farms and villas, with beautiful, intricate roads that stretch on for miles. It is a world of order and comfort, a world you are now tasked with destroying. You don't feel any malice towards these people. Not really. This is just war, a brutal but necessary part of life. They are weak, and you are strong. It is the natural order of things. One of the less known details about this campaign is the brutal efficiency of the Hunnish siege tactics. While the Huns were not traditionally known for siege warfare, they quickly adapted. They would surround a city, and instead of engaging in a long siege, they would use a variety of terrifying tactics to force a surrender. They would use captured Roman engineers to build siege engines, and they would use the psychological terror of their reputation to break the will of the defenders. The sight of a city burning in the distance, a sight you become all too familiar with, is often enough to make the next city in your path open its gates without a fight. The Eastern Roman Empire, in its arrogance, has been paying the Huns a small tribute for years. A little bribe to keep you from raiding their territory? But with Attila in command, those bribes are no longer enough. The amount of gold you demand grows with each passing year, and with each successful campaign, Attila's message to the Roman emperor is simple: pay me, or I will burn your entire world to the ground. The Romans, in their desperate and foolish pride, try to resist. They try to send armies against you, but they are always defeated. They try to build up their defenses, but your armies simply ride around them. They are a great, powerful, but ultimately impotent beast, and you are the one holding the leash. Historians still debate the true level of corruption within the Eastern Roman court. Was it a complete and total nest of vipers? Or were there some good, honest men who were simply outmaneuvered by Attila and his cunning? It's likely a mix. The Eastern Roman Empire was a political hotbed, and Attila was a master at exploiting those rivalries. He would often have Roman envoys and generals assassinated, and he would play different Roman factions against each other, always keeping them off balance and always keeping them weak. The campaign of the Danube lasts for years. You become a hardened veteran, a man who has seen 1,000 battles and has burned 100 towns. You see the Eastern Roman Empire, once so powerful and proud, brought to its knees. The emperor, a man who sits in his gilded palace in Constantinople, is now a man who is terrified of your leader. He is a man who is forced to pay a king's ransom in gold and silver just to keep you from his gates. The wealth of the Roman Empire, the gold and the silver and the beautiful things, is now flowing out of Constantinople and into the hands of your chieftain. It's a victory, a huge, undeniable victory, but it doesn't feel like an end. It feels like a beginning. You can sense that Attila has his eyes on something bigger, something grander, and that the Eastern Roman Empire was just a warm-up act. The next chapter of your conquest is about to begin, and the world is about to know a new kind of terror. The raids along the Danube have been a resounding success. You are no longer just a Hunnic warrior, you are a living legend, a part of the unstoppable force that has brought the mighty Eastern Roman Empire to its knees. The gold now flows into Attila's court, not in the form of loot, but as regular tribute. You have a new kind of power, the power of a conquering army that is so feared that nations will pay you just to stay away. But this is not enough for Attila. He is a man with an insatiable hunger for power, and he knows that the Roman Empire is not just in the east. There is also the west, and in the west, there are new rivalries, new weaknesses, and new opportunities for conquest. Your life, which for years had been a constant cycle of raiding and tribute, now enters a new phase. It is a phase of high-stakes diplomacy and political maneuvering. Attila, the man who is the embodiment of brutal, physical force, is now also a master of psychological warfare and political games. He receives Roman envoys in his court, a strange, elaborate camp of felt yurts and wooden buildings in the middle of a vast plain. You stand guard as these soft, Roman men, with their perfumed robes and their intricate manners, come to plead for peace and to pay their tribute. You can see the fear in their eyes, the way they flinch at the sight of your bow and your horse. You can tell they are a different kind of animal, a creature of cities and words, and you are a creature of the wind and the sword. Attila, in these negotiations, is a master of manipulation. He does not just demand gold, he demands respect. He treats the Roman envoys with a mixture of imperious arrogance and unpredictable rage, always keeping them off balance. He will have them wait for days before he grants them an audience. He will demand an absurd amount of gold, and when they protest, he will simply smile, a cold, humorless smile, and threaten to burn their world to the ground. He knows that they will pay. They always pay. One of the more bizarre and interesting moments in this diplomatic dance is the story of Honoria, the sister of the Western Roman Emperor, in a desperate act of rebellion against her brother. She sends Attila a ring and a message, asking for his help and promising to marry him. Attila, in a brilliant act of manipulation, takes this as a formal proposal of marriage. He demands half of the Western Roman Empire as her dowry. This is an outrageous demand. Of course, a thinly veiled excuse to invade. The Romans, horrified, try to deny it, but Attila has what he needs: a pretext for war. He has found the perfect weak point, the perfect excuse to turn his gaze westward. The politics of the Western Roman Empire are a nest of vipers, even more corrupt and more chaotic than those in the East. The Emperor, Valentinian III, is a weak and indecisive man. The real power behind the throne is his general, Aetius, a man who is a master of political intrigue. A man who, in a strange twist of fate, spent a part of his youth as a hostage at Attila's court. Aetius and Attila know each other. They are two sides of the same coin. Two cunning, ruthless men who understand each other's minds. This strange, unspoken respect and rivalry between them will shape the future of the Western Roman Empire. Historians still debate the true level of Attila's personal cruelty. Was he truly a monster? A man who loved to see the world burn? Or was he a cold, calculating leader who used brutality as a tool, a means to an end? It's likely a mix. The Huns were a brutal, warlike people, and Attila was the ultimate expression of that culture. But he was also a genius, a man who understood that power was not just about winning battles, it was about winning the war of perception, of fear, and of manipulation. He was not just a warrior, he was a statesman, a brilliant and terrifying one. You and your fellow warriors are ready. The diplomatic games are just a prelude, a way to justify what is coming. Attila has declared his intention to march west, to claim his dowry, and to bring the full weight of the Hunnic horde down on the cities of Gaul. You can feel the change in the air, the collective excitement and anticipation of a new campaign. This is not just a raid for gold, this is a war of conquest, a final, brutal attempt to bring the entire Roman world to its knees. The stage is set for a great and terrible confrontation, a battle that will determine the fate of an empire. And you, a mounted archer from the steppes, are about to be a part of it. The diplomatic games are over. The thin veil of justification Honoria's marriage proposal has given Attila the pretext he needs. He has amassed a great army, a terrifying coalition of Huns, Ostrogoths, Gepids, and other Germanic tribes who have sworn allegiance to him. The sheer scale of the army is a sight to behold, a vast sea of men, horses, and wagons that stretches across the plains. This is not a raiding party, this is a force of conquest, and the target is not a small Roman outpost, but the heart of Gaul, the Roman province that is now modern-day France. The year is 451, and you are a part of this terrifying machine. You ride with your fellow warriors, a mounted archer from the steppes, a small cog in a vast and unstoppable machine. The journey westward is long and arduous. You cross rivers, forests, and mountain passes. Your mind set on the prize that awaits you. The world of the Gauls is a different kind of world than the one you are used to. It is a world of walled cities, of lush vineyards, and of a rich, Romanized culture that seems so foreign to you. But it is a world that is about to be burned. Attila's plan is to march to the city of Orléans, a key strategic city on the Loire River. He knows that if he can take Orléans, he can control the entire region. The Gauls, terrified, send out desperate pleas for help to the Western Roman Empire. And for the first time in a long time, the Romans are forced to act. They send their greatest general, a man named Aetius. Aetius, a man who knows Attila's mind better than anyone, is not a man to panic. He knows he cannot defeat Attila alone. He needs an ally, a powerful, ruthless ally who is as good at war as Attila is. And he finds that ally in the form of a man named Theodoric III, the king of the Visigoths. This is one of the most interesting and complex details of this campaign. The Visigoths are a Germanic tribe who had settled in Gaul with Roman permission. They were, in a way, a Roman ally, but they were also a powerful, independent force. Aetius, in a moment of brilliant diplomacy, convinces Theodoric to join him. He appeals to his sense of self-preservation, arguing that if Attila takes Gaul, the Visigoths will be next. Theodoric, a wise and powerful king, agrees. And so, a great coalition has formed the Romans and their old rivals, the Visigoths, uniting against a common enemy. You and your fellow warriors arrive at Orléans to find the city under siege. The Huns have laid siege to the city, but they have not been able to break through the walls. Your armies are a terrifying sight, a vast sea of men and horses that surrounds the city. The people of Orléans, huddled behind their walls, are in a state of panic and despair. They know that if the city falls, they will be slaughtered, but just as the city is about to fall, the relief army arrives. It is a sight to behold. The Roman and Visigothic armies, a combined force of heavy infantry and cavalry, arrive on the scene. The sight of them, a unified force of Roman discipline and Visigothic fury, is a shocking sight. This is not the disorganized, weak Roman army you have been fighting. This is a real army, a formidable force of battle-hardened veterans. Attila, seeing that he is about to be trapped between the relief army and the city, makes a tactical decision. He breaks the siege and retreats, but he doesn't retreat far. He leads his army to a vast, open plain, a place that will be perfect for a cavalry battle. The place is called the Catalonian Plains. He knows that his strength is in his cavalry, and he wants to fight a battle on his terms. Aetius and Theodoric follow, and the stage is set for one of the greatest and most chaotic battles in the history of the ancient world. Historians still debate the location of the Catalonian Plains. Was it in the heart of Gaul, as the name suggests, or was it somewhere else? The exact location is lost to history, but what is not lost is the sheer scale of the battle that took place there. It was a clash of titans, a battle between two great empires and a host of allied tribes. It was a battle that was fought not just for land, but for the very soul of Europe. The battle itself is a confused, bloody, and brutal affair. The two armies clash in the open plain, a swirling, chaotic mass of men and horses. You, as a mounted archer, ride in circles, firing your arrows into the enemy ranks. The air is thick with the sound of steel on steel, the screams of men, and the pounding of hooves. The Romans, with their heavy infantry, try to hold their ground, while the Visigoths, led by their fierce king, Theodoric, charge with a terrifying fury. The battle rages for hours. The casualties are immense on both sides. The Visigothic king, Theodoric, is killed in the fighting, a blow that devastates his army. But the Visigoths, in their rage, fight on. They are a force of nature, a terrifying, brutal force that can match the Huns in their ferocity. The battle ends in a stalemate. Neither side can claim a decisive victory. Attila's army has been beaten back, but not defeated, and Aetius, having lost his most powerful ally, the Visigothic king, decides not to pursue. He lets Attila's army retreat, a decision that will be debated by historians for centuries. You and your fellow warriors retreat, a bitter taste in your mouth. This is not a victory. This is not a defeat, but it is not a victory. You have not conquered Gaul. You have not destroyed the Romans. You have fought them to a bloody stalemate, and you have lost many of your own in the process. The image of Attila as an invincible conqueror has been shattered. The Romans and the world have seen that he can be stopped. But the story is not over. Not yet. Attila has been beaten back, but not broken, and the world is about to feel his wrath again. The Battle of the Catalonian Plains is a ringing in your ears, a constant reminder of the bloody stalemate. You have not won, but you have not lost Attila. In a rare show of tactical retreat, has led you back to the plains of Pannonia. The grand invasion of Gaul has failed, but the world is not safe. The Romans and their Visigothic allies have not pursued you. They know that even a wounded Hunnic army is a deadly one, and they are not willing to risk another battle. This is the new reality of your life. You are a force of nature that can be contained, but not defeated. The year is 452, and the memory of the Catalonian plains is still fresh. Attila, a man who has never known anything but victory, is now consumed by a quiet rage. He is a man who cannot accept a draw. He has been stymied in Gaul, but he knows there is a new prize to be had, a prize that will truly bring the Roman Empire to its knees: Italy. He knows that the Roman army is weak, that its greatest general, Aetius, has been forced to disband his coalition of allies, and that the heart of the empire is now open for the taking. Your army is reassembled, a terrifying force of Huns and their various allies. You are a part of a new campaign, a new march of conquest. This time, there are no great sieges, no prolonged battles. This is a campaign of pure terror. You cross the Alps and pour into the plains of Italy like a flood. The Roman defenses are non-existent. The cities of Italy are unprepared, and the Roman army is too weak to stop you. The first city you encounter is Aquileia, a great and prosperous city, a hub of trade and wealth. The city's inhabitants, in their arrogance, believe their walls will save them. They defy Attila. They taunt you from the safety of their battlements. This is a fatal mistake. Attila lays siege to the city, a brutal, relentless siege that lasts for months. The Huns, not traditionally known for siege warfare, are now masters of it. They use captured Roman engineers to build siege engines. They use psychological terror, and they use the sheer force of their numbers to wear down the city's defenses. One of the less-known details about the siege of Aquileia is the story of Attila's rage, according to legend. Attila was about to give up on the siege, but he saw a stork fly from the city, carrying its young. He took this as a sign that the gods were abandoning the city, and he renewed his assault with a terrifying ferocity. The city falls. The slaughter is unimaginable. You and your fellow warriors pour into the city, and you leave nothing standing. The city is so thoroughly destroyed that it will never be rebuilt. It becomes a ghost town, a barren wasteland, a monument to Attila's fury. The rest of Italy is now in a state of sheer panic. The news of Aquileia's fate spreads like a plague, and cities everywhere begin to open their gates without a fight. The Roman army, a shadow of its former self, is either defeated in small, pitiful skirmishes or simply retreats. Leaving the cities to their fate, you march through the heart of Italy, a land of ancient ruins and beautiful villas, and you bring nothing but fire and fear. The air is thick with the smoke of burning farms and the screams of people fleeing for their lives. Historians still debate why Aetius, the great Roman general, did not ride to Italy's defense. Was he too weak? Did he not have an army? Or was he, as some have suggested, a man who was more interested in his own political survival than in the defense of his people? It is a question that will never be answered, but his absence is a great, gaping hole in the history of the campaign. The fact is that Italy is now undefended, and Attila has a free hand to do whatever he wants. The march continues, and you and your fellow warriors arrive at the city of Mediolanum, modern-day Milan. The city, in its desperation, surrenders without a fight. Attila, in a rare act of what you might call mercy, spares the city, but he leaves behind a message, a powerful piece of psychological warfare. He has a portrait of the Roman emperor in his palace, and he has one of his artists paint a portrait of the Huns conquering the Romans, a picture of the Hunnish emperor on his throne. With the Roman emperors kneeling before him, it's a chilling and powerful statement of his absolute power, a sign that the old order is dying and a new one is being born. The ultimate goal of the campaign, however, is not just the cities of Italy, it is Rome itself. The great, eternal city, the heart of the Western Roman Empire, is now in your sights. The march to Rome is a long, arduous one, but you can feel the anticipation in the air. This is the moment you have all been waiting for. This is the final, grand act of conquest. But just as you are about to arrive at the gates of Rome, something unexpected happens. The Pope, a man named Leo I, rides out to meet Attila. The march to Rome is a grand, terrifying thing. You are at the very gates of history, about to sack the city that has been the center of the civilized world for 1,000 years. The anticipation is a palpable thing, a nervous energy that runs through the ranks of the Hunnish army. You can almost taste the plunder, the glory, the ultimate victory. But then, as you and your fellow warriors arrive at the outskirts of the great city, a strange procession emerges from the gates. It's not an army, it's not a terrified mob. It's a group of unarmed men in robes, a small, fragile-looking delegation. And at their head is a man on a white mule, a man with a stern, imposing face and the aura of immense spiritual authority. He is Pope Leo IV. This is one of the most famous and mysterious moments in the history of the Western world. You, a pagan warrior from the steppes, are now face to face with the head of the Christian Church. This is a clash of two worlds, of two completely different systems of power and belief. The Pope, a man of God, and Attila, a man the Romans have dubbed the Scourge of God, are about to have a conversation that will change the course of history. You stand guard as the two men meet. You can't hear what they're saying, but you can feel the tension in the air. The Pope, in his quiet, dignified way, speaks to Attila. He is not begging for his life. He is not pleading for mercy. He is making a case, an argument for the sanctity of the city of Rome. He reminds Attila of the fate of Alaric, the Visigothic king who had sacked Rome a few decades earlier. Alaric had died shortly after his great victory, and his people believed that his death was a punishment from God for his sacrilege. Leo I is using this historical precedent, this superstition, as a weapon. He is not threatening Attila with an army, he is threatening him with God. This is a brilliant and audacious move. The Pope is not a soldier, and he has no army. But he has something far more powerful. He has the deep-seated superstition and the respect for the spiritual realm that even a brutal conqueror like Attila possesses. The Huns. You see, were not a monolithic religious group. They were a mix of pagans, and they had a healthy fear of the supernatural. Leo I is playing on that fear, using the ghost of Alaric and the wrath of the Christian god as his ultimate weapon. Historians still debate what truly happened at that meeting. Was it just the Pope's powerful rhetoric that swayed Attila? Did he bribe the Hunnic king with Roman gold? Or was there a more practical reason for his decision? The truth is likely a combination of all three. Attila, in his cunning, likely saw the Roman Empire for what it was, a dying beast. He had already plundered a great deal of Italy. His army was laden with loot, and it was now in a land that was a hotbed of disease and famine. His supply lines were stretched thin, and he knew that if he laid a long siege to Rome, his army would be vulnerable to a counterattack. The Pope's plea gave him a perfect excuse to retreat, a way to save face and to leave with his reputation intact. So, in a shocking turn of events, you and your army turn and ride away from Rome. The city is spared. The world is in a state of disbelief. The man who has brought the Eastern Roman Empire to its knees, the man who has left a trail of destruction from the Danube to the heart of Italy, has been stopped by an old man in a robe. It's a victory, a monumental victory for the city of Rome and for the Christian church. But it's a quiet, psychological victory, a victory of ideas over brute force. Your campaign in Italy is over, and you and your fellow warriors return to your homelands. You are a conqueror, a man who has seen and done unimaginable things. But you are also a man who has been a part of a failed conquest. You did not take Rome. You did not bring the Western Roman Empire to its knees. And this is a great, bitter pill to swallow. Attila, in his rage, is a man who cannot accept this kind of failure. He has been stymied by a man of God, a man who had no army and no sword. This is a kind of defeat that a man like Attila cannot bear. The story, however, is not over. It's a slow, quiet ending. A year later, Attila, a man who has been a living terror for a decade, is dead. The circumstances of his death are a mystery. He dies on his wedding night, after a night of heavy drinking, and his cause of death is a massive nosebleed. The stories, the rumors, the legends, they all circulate. Was he murdered by his new bride? Was it a stroke? Was it a punishment from the Christian God? Just as Pope Leo the Hun had warned, historians still debate the true cause of his death. The fact is that a man who had terrorized an entire continent, a man who had brought two great empires to their knees, died not in battle, but in his sleep. His death is a quiet, ignominious end to a life of unimaginable violence. His empire, a fragile coalition of tribes held together by his will and his charisma, falls apart almost immediately. The Huns, without their great leader, turn on each other. The empire is a ghost, a memory, and a warning, and you, a surviving warrior from that forgotten age, are a ghost of that ghost, a living relic of a world that is no more, the world you knew, a world dominated by the will of one man. Shatters the day Attila dies. It's a surreal moment, a silence that falls over the Hunnic court and then spreads like a ripple to the farthest corners of the empire. You, a man who has lived and breathed conquest for a decade, are suddenly a man adrift. The great, terrifying force that held your people together, a force of charisma, violence, and sheer willpower is gone. It's like a great dam has broken, and all the old rivalries, all the old tribal feuds, rush back with a terrifying ferocity. Attila's sons, in their arrogance, try to take over, but they are not their father. They are not the embodiment of a terrifying idea. They are just men. And the vast, diverse empire that Attila had cobbled together with fire and fear has no loyalty to them. The Ostrogoths, the Gepids, the other Germanic tribes that had been a part of your great coalition, they all rise up. They have their own leaders, their own ambitions, and they see this moment as their chance to break free. The first great battle of the Hun civil wars fought at the Battle of Nidau in 454. It's a bitter, bloody affair. A battle fought between the Huns and their former allies. You, a veteran of 1,000 battles against the Romans, now find yourself fighting against men you once rode alongside. The battle is a decisive victory for the allied tribes. Attila's oldest son, Elek, is killed in the fighting. The Hunnic Empire, a fragile coalition of tribes held together by one man's will, is now in free fall. It's a tragedy. A brutal and ignominious end to a story that had begun with such a terrifying roar. The remaining Huns, defeated and leaderless, flee back to the steppes, back to the wild. Open lands that had given birth to their great leader. You, a surviving warrior, are a part of this sad, desperate retreat. You are no longer a conqueror, but a refugee. The memory of Italy, of Gaul, of the great battles and the immense wealth, it all feels like a dream. A feverish fantasy that has now evaporated in the cold light of reality. The Roman Empire, the beast you had fought for so long, has survived. And you, a part of the force that had tried to destroy it, are now a nobody, a man with a shattered identity and a stolen past. One of the more tragic and less-known details of this period is the fate of the Hunnic people themselves. Without a strong leader, they splintered and were eventually absorbed into other tribes, a slow and agonizing end to a people who had once terrified a continent. The Huns, as a distinct cultural and political entity, simply disappeared from the pages of history. They were a comet, a flash of brilliant, terrifying light that burned across the sky and then was gone forever. The Roman Empire, which had seemed on the verge of collapse just a few years earlier, gets a new lease on life. Attila's death and the subsequent breakup of his empire give the Romans a much-needed reprieve. They are not out of the woods, of course. The great barbarian invasions are far from over, and the Western Roman Empire is still a weak and dying institution. But they have survived their greatest threat, and for a brief, fleeting moment, they can breathe a sigh of relief. Historians still debate the lasting impact of Attila on the Roman Empire. Did his brutal campaigns weaken the Roman Empire to the point of no return? Or did his attacks on the other barbarian tribes, like the Goths and the Vandals, actually help the Romans in the long run? It's a complex question, and the answer is likely a bit of both. Attila was a destructive force, a brutal and terrifying presence that left a trail of ruined cities and shattered lives, but his death also created a power vacuum, a chaotic period that the Romans, in their weakness, were unable to fully exploit. You, an old man now, sit by a small fire on the open steppe, a world away from the gilded cities of Rome and Constantinople. You look back on your life, a life of unparalleled violence and conquest, and you wonder what it was all for. You were a part of a great and terrible story, a story of a man who was so feared that the world called him the Scourge of God. But in the end, it was not the Roman army that defeated him. It was not the Pope's plea that truly stopped him. It was the simple, undeniable fact that no empire, no matter how great, can be held together by one man's will alone. The moment that will is gone, the empire is gone too. The legacy of Attila, however, is far from over. His name, a name that was once a symbol of terror, is now a symbol of something else. It is a symbol of the ultimate power of a single man, of a force of nature that can change the course of history. It is a legend, a story that will be told and retold for 1,000 years. And you, an old Hunnic warrior sitting by a fire in the middle of nowhere, are a small, quiet part of that legend. You are the last living link to a world that no longer exists, a world that was created and destroyed by the same terrible man. The great empire of the Huns, a whirlwind of conquest and terror, is now a ghost. You, an old man who once rode with the Scourge of God, are now a wanderer, a man without a home, a man who has outlived his own story. The world, which for a brief and terrifying period was defined by the clatter of Hunnic hooves, has reverted to its old ways. The Romans, though wounded, are still there. The Goths, the Vandals, and the other Germanic tribes are still there, all jockeying for power in the vacuum left by Attila's death. You are a relic, a remnant of a magnificent, terrible, and ultimately fleeting moment in history. The memory of the campaigns, the burning cities of the Danube, the bloody plains of Gaul, the quiet retreat from the gates of Rome. It all feels like a fever dream now. You can't help but wonder what it was all for. Your people, a proud and terrifying force, have been scattered to the winds. the great wealth you had all amassed has been squandered in a short, brutal civil war. The fear that Attila had so carefully cultivated is gone, replaced by a mixture of relief and a quiet, historical forgetfulness. The world has moved on, and it has left you behind. The Roman Empire, that slow-moving, bureaucratic beast, has survived, but it is not the same. Attila's brutal campaigns, while they did not bring the empire to its knees, did irrevocably weaken it. The cities he burned, the tribute he demanded, the armies he destroyed, it all took a toll. The Western Roman Empire, which was already in a state of decay, simply could not recover. The great power vacuum left by Attila's death is not filled by the Romans, but by the Goths and the Vandals and the other Germanic tribes who now see their chance to build their own kingdoms on the ruins of the Roman world. One of the less-known details about the aftermath of Attila's death is the effect it had on the other barbarian tribes. Attila had, for a time, been the great unifier. He had forced a diverse and often warring group of tribes to fight under a single banner. When he was gone, those tribes went back to their old ways, but they did so with a new sense of ambition and a new sense of a possible future. They had seen that it was possible to defeat the Romans, and they had seen that it was possible to create a great empire. This lesson, learned from Attila, would fuel a century of further invasions and conquests. Attila, even in death, was still shaping the world. Historians still debate the true nature of Attila's legacy. Was he truly a destructive force? A scourge of God who left nothing but ruin in his wake? Or was he, in a strange, brutal way, a catalyst for change? Did his conquest, by weakening the old Roman order, pave the way for a new, more diverse, and ultimately more resilient Europe? It's a question that has no easy answer. The fact is that Attila was a force of nature, a living, breathing storm that swept across the continent and left nothing untouched. He was a symbol of the raw, brutal power of a new world, a world that was being born in the ashes of the old. You, an old man with a face full of wrinkles and a heart full of memories, are a living testament to that truth. You were a part of that storm. You were the thunder, the fire, and the wind. But the storm has passed. The sun is shining again, and the world is trying to rebuild itself. You are a man who has lost everything: your people, your leader, your purpose. You are an old warrior in a new world, a world that has no place for you. You are a man who is waiting for his own. Quiet end. A man who is just a whisper of a forgotten age. You think about the Roman envoys, the men you once terrified with your bow and your horse. They, too, are now a part of this new, chaotic world. They are the survivors, the ones who have lived to see the end of one era and the beginning of another. You, a man who has lived your entire life in a world of war and conquest. Now find yourself in a world of silence and memory. The thunder of hooves, the twang of a bowstring, the screams of the dying, it is all gone. There is only the quiet of the night, the soft sound of a fire, and the memory of a name that once terrified the world. And that name, a name that will be whispered for 1,000 years, is Attila. The great Hunnic whirlwind has long since passed. The memory of Attila is a ghost now, a story whispered around campfires and told in hushed tones in the cities that he once threatened. You, a man who once rode with the Scourge of God, are now a quiet old man, living out your days in a small settlement on the edge of the Great Steppes. Your world, a world of nomadic camps and open horizons, is all that remains of the vast, terrifying empire you helped to build. The cities of Italy and Gaul, the places you once brought fire and fear to, are now just distant, foreign lands. Their names a fading echo in your mind. The fire in your hearth is a small comfort against the cold nights, and the memories of your life are a strange mixture of pride and a quiet. gnawing sadness. You were a part of something great, something terrible, and something that was ultimately fleeting. The great empire of the Huns, a force that seemed unstoppable, shattered the moment its heart stopped beating. The raw, brutal power of one man was enough to hold it together, and the absence of that power was enough to tear it apart. It's a simple, undeniable truth, and it's a truth that you, a man who saw it all firsthand, carry with you every day. The Roman Empire, that slow-moving, lumbering beast that you and your people had spent a generation fighting, is now a shadow of its former self. It did not die at the hands of the Huns, but it was irrevocably weakened by your onslaught. The great barbarian kingdoms, the Visigoths, the Vandals, the Ostrogoths are now the true powers in Europe, a testament to the fact that the old world is dying and a new one is being born. You and your people were the midwife of that new world, a brutal and violent force that helped to usher in a new age of chaos and change. You think about the Roman envoys, the men who once came to your camp with fear in their eyes. They are all gone now. You think about Pope Leo I, the man who, with nothing but words, had sent your mighty army away from the gates of Rome. He, too, is a ghost now. A figure in a story that will be told and retold for centuries. You were a part of that story, a part of a great and terrible moment in history, but now you are just an old man, and the story is over. One of the more enduring and interesting aspects of Attila's legacy is the fact that he became a mythological figure. In Germanic sagas and Norse legends, he appears as a powerful but often tragic king, a figure of great power and great sorrow. He is not just a historical figure, he is a hero and a villain, a symbol of the raw power of the wilderness and the chaos that can bring down a great empire. He is a part of the cultural memory of the very people he terrorized, a testament to the power of his legend. Historians still debate the true nature of Attila's death. Was it murder? Was it an accident? The fact is, the mystery of his death is part of the mystique. A man who was so great, so terrifying in his life, could not have a mundane death. His end had to be a part of his legend, a final, dramatic act that would solidify his place in the annals of history. And so, the stories, the rumors, the legends, they all become a part of the truth, a part of the great historical myth that is Attila the Hun. You, an old man with a heart full of memories and a body full of old wounds, are a living testament to that truth. You were a part of a comet, a flash of brilliant, terrifying light that burned across the sky and then was gone. Your life, a life of unparalleled violence and conquest, has come to a quiet, peaceful end. But the world you helped to shape, the world that was born in the ashes of the one you helped to destroy, is still here. It's a world that has learned a terrible and powerful lesson that a single man, with enough ambition and enough terror, can change the course of history forever. And you, an old Hunnic warrior sitting by a fire, are the last, quiet echo of that terrible truth. The fire in your hearth is a soft, comforting presence now, its light dancing on the walls of your humble home. The wind outside has died down to a gentle sigh, a whisper that speaks of endless, open plains and a past that is now nothing but a memory. The weight of the centuries, the weight of the stories and the wars and the legends, it all feels so far away now. The thunder of hooves, the screams of men, the glint of a drawn sword, it is all just a dream. A feverish, terrible dream that has long since passed. There is only this moment now, the soft crackle of the fire, the quiet hum of the night, the peaceful, gentle rhythm of your own breathing. Let the ghosts of the past fade away. Let the stories that were told find their rest. Your journey through a world of brutal power and ancient empires is over. The time for sleep has come. Rest now. be at peace.